You want to start out in the harbor?
Start right out front. Most of you people live over here in Lake County. So are you familiar with your harbors and your areas to fish right up here?
Work right where they are.
Work right where they are. Most of mine will be focused, I haven't been over in your area in 30 years. I know it's all changed, and I haven't fished the rocks or anything over there in about 25, 30 years. So I'll base mine mostly in Michigan City. That's from Valpo, and we spend most of our time in the Michigan City area. If you previewed that, I mean, you saw us come, we had some pictures, kind of gave you a shot of the Michigan City Pier. Michigan City Pier is it's a flat sidewalk, walk all the way out from the parking lot, a couple of steps down on the pier, and then the pier is all flat. As he said, he's fished all over North America for steelhead. A lot of us here fish up and down either coastline of Lake Michigan, other lakes. You get up over in Wisconsin, a lot of the access is rocky. Might be like Amico, going up and down and over those. I remember those from 30 years ago. But this rig you see right here, unlike Jack told me out in the parking lot, he grabs a bag, he grabs a rod, and he's ready. Well, Jack's going to talk about stream fly fishing, and you wouldn't see me trying to go stream fishing with this. It's probably the Cadillac of pier carts. In the old days, we just used to carry our net and a bucket. You see the 5-gallon bucket. Even that wasn't a backpack, and you go out there. But as we fish together all the time, that's my wife there. She can tell you anything about our webpage. She does our webpage. When you bring back, if you're lucky and you bring back 5 steelhead or 5 salmon from as far out as that lighthouse, it gets to be quite a drag, or trying to hold them or put them in a plastic bag. And, you know, about 10, 15 years ago, you started seeing these carts come along. It makes a perfect vehicle for getting out on an accessible, walkable pier, jetty, or whatever, where you don't have a lot of huge rocks to contend with. Not like your jetties that you have over here, where it's kind of rocky. But it really serves. It's nothing more than an Ace hardware cart. I actually got this one up at a bait shop up in Benton Harbor, but and we've added some stuff to it, so they're all personal, and you'll see all kinds of vehicles that carry stuff out to those piers. As Mike mentioned, we kind of fish with the long rods. You'll see the long rods came out of Michigan in the 70s and 80s. The rivers were clear. Especially steelhead were on low water and clear water. Steelhead is basically a rainbow trout, only they're this big. And they can get real shy. This rod, we didn't really hold it up, but this rod is 15 feet long. Mike mentioned the open water. It doesn't really serve in Indiana in the streams because it's way too long. But a rod typical on the large Michigan rivers. In 1975, I was fishing 13 feet. And with that rod, we could crank down to a 2-pound test leader and catch 15-pound fish. The rods are so forgiving that we can drop our line weights down. Typically, even this is a 10'6". Use it out on the pier all the time. Actually, right now it serves me both in the stream, like in Trail Creek, and out on the pier. And I'll get into all kinds of floats, and Paul will too. But this float clips in with a little rubber surgical tube, so I can switch this float out and go to a little something larger for out on the lakefront. That'd be a little windier. But I can still actually use that float out on the pier. But it's about anywhere from 9'6", 10'6", 11 foot. Most of these right here are about 10'6". I don't ever run anything but 8-pound test on them. I don't see the need to even go to 10. I've got a swivel tight in here, so I may reduce this leader. It just depends on the water clarity. A lot of fluorocarbon. This one actually doesn't have it right now, but we use a lot of fluorocarbon leaders that virtually just disappear in the water. You see the bucket, right now I've got rod holders, and in some of the pictures you saw, they were out on the pier, and everybody's using a rod holder, because out on the pier it's kind of a social atmosphere. I could see a couple people, we were in the harbor, and we were having tailgate cookouts. So there's a big camaraderie that goes on. Everybody over there knows everybody else, and it's like, you know, it's like a club day or something. We do, you know, so, but whether we're fishing on the bottom or we're fishing with floats out on the pier, we can set these in these rod holders. Especially, Mike mentioned those the Skamania steelhead that come late May, June, run right through July. A summer running steelhead. Indiana was the first to bring that fish from the West Coast in the late 1970s to have a summer fishery close to shore out here. No other Great Lakes state had them. That fish has been transported around a few areas in the Great Lakes, but they're not really utilized like we do here in Indiana. That fish in the summer is very, very fast. They can jump 6, 8, sometimes 10 feet. And we're floating, and you know what, I didn't bring any bait. I usually bring our bait. Our bait is shrimp, salmon eggs, night crawlers. Steelhead will eat almost anything. Our biggest producer is shrimp. That's what everybody uses. Ready to eat shrimp that you can go to Myers right down here and buy. A lot less messy than salmon eggs, although salmon eggs work really, really great. So there we are, we're out there, we're throwing our floats. There is a current in Michigan City, so our floats will go down and then they'll come back, and you have to bring in your line and recast. But along with that, we can tailgate, we can visit, and then all of a sudden your rod goes down. Well, in the early days of float fishing, everybody's using a standard spinning reel, like Mike would show you. Any standard spinning reel, the ones you're familiar with, and even in the rod holder, it's uncanny, but the Skamania steelhead run just about the time lake perch are coming. So out on the pier, we've got tons of lake perch fishermen who are a little minnow and a little 5-foot rod, and they lay that rod down on that concrete surface, and all of a sudden you hear this scratching across the concrete. There went a rod. You turn around like, where'd my rod go? Next thing you know, you see a 12-pound steelhead out there just jumping around. He's got his rod. So what innovative, steelheaders are innovative. They tie their own spinners, they tie their own flies. We've got guys now turning their own wooden corks. So, you know, there's a lot of things we do in the winter or when there aren't any fish, but in Indiana there's always fish. But they came up with this reel. It's a regular spinning reel. This is an Akuma. See that little lever on the back? This is what you call a bait runner. They're popular down in Florida in larger sizes with live bait. What I can do is throw this float or bottom rod out, let it sit, and stick it in my rod holder and flip the bait runner on. Now when that fish hits, he's in almost like he's in a free line. It actually has an adjustable drag on the back set for that so that I can tighten up how I can tighten it up. And what that allows to happen is the fish doesn't get my rod. I don't have to be there all the time. We've got a few guys that say a watch pot never boils, and they never catch fish if they're standing right over their rod, but if they walk 10 yards away, it'll go off.
Or go to the bathroom, right, Mike?
Smoke a cigarette, get a hamburger.
But that's what the bait runner allows. I can trip that bait runner, now that fish can take, and as long as I get there before he hits the end of the spool, then, well, I've got him.
Or 35 other guys on the break wall coming after you for tangling the line.
And that is, as soon as I turn that handle, that free spool bait runner is off, and I'm into my actual front drag. So it works just like a regular spinning reel, it's just got one added feature. We do an awful lot of float fishing out there, depending on harbor, pier, wherever you're at in the Great Lakes. Each river that comes out in a harbor area has its own flow, its own, for example, Pier Marquette. up in Ludington, Michigan. That's got such a tremendous, it's a moderate stream inland, but it has such a tremendous flow coming out of it. I've been there, and it takes, if you're casting hardware or spoons or body baits, it takes nearly an ounce and a quarter of spoon to be able to fish in Ludington. The current's that strong. Upwards to 3 ounces of lead if you're bottom fishing, and I'll get to that. If you're bottom fishing, we use pyramid sinkers to hold our stuff on the bottom. It takes 3 ounces of lead in Ludington to hold it still. Otherwise, it gets picked up and moved out. So this is the basic rig. And do I have that on? You see that. That just happens to be one type of float as opposed to a bobber. And I'll let others talk about floats and bobbers. But you see that little, that's a battery. That's a little battery for this type of light. You've probably seen them. You've been to Walmart, you see them. This float's made by Phil, and there's that same battery in there. We do an awful lot of evening, all night, and very, very early in the morning. So that just gives us, you can change colors because you get out there some nights it looks like an airplane landing strip. All the floats running down, maybe 100 of them. So you can change colors of these and know which one's yours. But it does help to especially at nighttime, because you throw it out there at night. At a certain point, Michigan City has lights, but after 1 o'clock in the morning they go off. So now you can actually see your float out there. So it really helps. And one of the other systems, besides these batteries, and sometimes we won't use that actual float. And in some cases, even in the harbor, that's a little large for us. We wouldn't normally throw something that big. But I didn't have them. We use these glow sticks. Now this one's old, it won't light, but I've got this larger one. And you've all seen the glow sticks, the kids got them. We utilize these quite a bit. There are little rubber holders that go in there. Right now I've got a little adapter, and it's a little rubber holder that holds it. Actually, what we'll do is in a longer necked float, maybe something like this or something like this, we'll just simply tape them on. We'll just tape them around that stem. There's not much stem to do that, but we'll just take that little glow stick and tape it on right there. And actually, these are, I mean, none of this stuff is cheap, but these are pretty cheap. You get 3 or 4 in a package, and that's how we night fish so much. And they got a bottom rig set up over here. Back in the early day of salmon and steelhead in Indiana, when we used to go out to the piers, and like Mike said, most of us steelheaders cut our teeth on fishing rivers, whether they were here. I spent 17 years traveling up and down Michigan. I'd only fish here after Christmas, and I live in Valpo. And I would try to fish almost to Christmas time up in Michigan. And that even today, a lot of stream fishing is done with the floats, but back in those days, we bottom bounced with a bunch of split shot and just let it bounce along the bottom and present a lure or a bait to the steelhead. And when we went to the harbors or the piers, back in those days, all we knew to do was either take an egg sinker or something like this, which just happens to be a slide with that pyramid sinker on it. I use a split shot, or I'll tie a swivel in and make a leader here. But with this split shot, I can adjust how much leader I have, or I can retie a leader. And in the old days, that's what we did. We used egg sacks, and we put it on a hook, and we threw this out, tightened up, and just sat there and waited for a brown or a steelhead or a chinook to come and get it. And then over the years, we refine our methods and our steps. Again, this is a different reel than the Okuma. It's an old quick reel, but it's also a bait runner. It's got a lever in the back that'll let line pay out as the fish takes. There's a lot less chance, with those bait runners, there's a lot less chance for you either not being there. A lot of these fish are fast, especially the steelhead. You would have to experience a summer run fish that can run. How fast can they run?